Hi everyone, my name is Anna and today I'm going to be talking about my experience with Becca's Bookoplathon. So this was a 48-hour weekend readathon that took place from the 11th to the 12th of July 2020, and it was a very unique concept because it was basically formatted the way Becca from Becca and the Books, one of my favourite booktubers, uses a Monopoly board that she made that has bookish prompts to determine her TBR. So she turned that into a 48-hour readathon, which was super exciting and a really interesting concept because unlike most readathons, you couldn't plan your TBR because there was prompt drops every 12 hours in the 48 hours of the readathon, which was really cool because you really didn't know what was coming, and it was really fun to be a part of that. Post the books that I was going to be reading for each role. So overall there was 4 roles and each one had 2 prompts possible, but you could either choose to do both or choose to do one of them for each role. I did not read any books. I read 6.5 books in total, but I did manage to fit every prompt except for one, which was the chance card. But let's get started. So the first prompt role was magical realism and a chance card. So a chance card was basically using some random generator or actually making cards to choose from a selection of books. So for my chance card I rolled and got the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which was actually my current read, and I was sort of tempted to read it, but I realised that it's a pretty thick book for a 48-hour readathon, and not only that, I didn't want to rush through it and not quite understand it or not enjoy it as much as I would if I read it at my own time. So I instead decided to go with the other prompt, which was magical realism. And I don't really read loads of magical realism anymore. I do prefer high fantasy, but my favourite series in my childhood and teenage life was Vampire Academy and Bloodlines, and this was a series that got me into reading. It's set in present day US, so I decided to reread Bloodlines since I reread Vampire Academy during quarantine. I really enjoyed reading Bloodlines. I gave it 4 stars. I'm not sure if I would have if this was the first time I ever read it, but it was really fun to kind of go back into this. I love all the characters. Adrian and Sydney are some of my favourite book characters ever. I do recognise that this book doesn't have loads of representation, but it is kind of still a nostalgia read for me. I'm not sure if I would have given it 4 stars if I hadn't read it before, but since it has such strong memories tied to it, I gave it 4 stars either way. Also worth of note that this is in Greek, which is my mother tongue, but I don't really read in Greek anymore, so I was actually kind of worried that that would ruin my speed, but I managed to read this pretty quickly. I think it took me about like 4 hours. It's about 400 pages. It kind of set the tone for the rest of the readathon, so you'll see what that means in a bit. So the second role prompt was either culturally diverse or a booktube recommendation, and I initially started with a culturally diverse prompt because I had an audiobook of The Silence of Bones by Jun Ho, and it's set in Joseon era Korea, and I just thought it was really fun and I really wanted to read it, but I only had the audiobook format and I don't really listen to audiobooks like at all, so I was kind of a bit worried about whether I would be able to read it during the readathon, and I was correct. I didn't manage to finish it. I still have like 7 hours of it left, so it set me back on the amount of books I could have read, but I really am enjoying it. So I didn't give it a star rating because I haven't finished it yet, but so far, halfway through, I'm really loving it, and I really want to know who did it and what is going on, and like the political like intrigue behind it is really interesting. The next prompt on that role was a viewer recommendation, which Becca then clarified that it could be a friend recommendation, a booktube recommendation, or anything you've been recommended. So I was recommended Blackbird by Sam Humphries, which is a graphic novel. I decided to read it because graphic novels are a really quick read for me, so I decided that even if I couldn't finish The Silence of Bones, I had still done something for that role. So it was a bit of a strategic move on my part. I gave Blackbird a 3-star rating. In fact, I didn't really like the plot. I thought it was really rushed. Like, The romance plotline, if you can even call it that, I really didn't like. It was so rushed. Like suddenly they were about to kiss and I was like, didn't you, like, I don't know, it was a bit rushed. But the art and the universe in this book is insane. And I always get this with fantasy graphic novels where I really want the book. Like, I want it written as a book because I just want to know how the magic works. Yeah, so this has to do with paragons and our main character who is in an earthquake and she sees this demon and she is the only one in her family that remembers it, and she's been told that she is crazy for believing these things about paragons and, you know, magic, until eventually she runs straight into them. It's a really interesting book. There is a plot twist that I'm not going to spoil because I want this to be spoiler free, and it really shocked me. I was not expecting it at all. I pride myself in being good at, like, being able to predict the plot twists, so they really did well with that one, and the art is just impeccable. Yeah, if you like cool looking monsters, which I really do, I would definitely recommend reading it. For the third prompt roll, the books that came up were mystery/thriller or a book that was gifted to you. So I'm really lucky with a gifted prompt in the sense that I'm actually at my parents' house right now. Because of lockdown, I am not back where I go to uni, so I have a lot of books here that actually my parents bought me when I was a lot younger, and I didn't have my own income, so I decided for that one to read The Golden Lily by Richelle Mead, which was the second book in the Bloodlines series. After I've read Bloodlines, I just really wanted to keep going in that universe, so I was kind of like, I'm just going to stretch every prompt to try and fit it if possible. But yeah, I definitely really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really like the development in this. This book is more character driven, this book in particular. We kind of learn a bit more about Sydney, Adrian, but also the side characters like Eddie, Jill, etc. They're all characters we've met before for the most part, like in the Vampire Academy series, but obviously the Vampire Academy series is centered around Lisa and Rose, so it's nice to kind of get to see them become their own characters instead of tools in Rose's plotline, if you see what I mean. So I really love this spin-off, and I probably like this series more than Vampire Academy, which is actually quite surprising. I gave this one 4 stars because of the character development, because I'm a sucker for a good character. I love seeing characters' flaws and characters' dynamics develop, so there's not a lot of plot in this one. It's quite slow, but I really like it. I initially was just going to finish The Silence of Bones for the mystery and thriller prompt, but when I realised that wasn't going to happen, I actually heard that Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughn are actually considered a fantasy thriller, so I decided to give that a go. It's another graphic novel about some paper girls, and they are sucked into this apocalypse scenario. I quite like this one. There's a big trigger warning for homophobia, which I was not expecting at all, because this book is about 12-year-old girls, so I did not expect to see them throwing around the F slur and making homophobic jokes. So that was a big no for me. It's in the first like 5 pages of the ebook and I was like, wait, what? But apart from that, I really enjoyed the rest. I think it's a really interesting plot and the art is amazing and the science fiction of it is really fun, and I'm hoping for some development into a non-homophobic character for that particular character. But yeah, a big trigger warning for that. Also felt a bit weird that it was uncensored. I'm not sure if the author is gay, but yeah, that felt a bit weird. But anyway, I gave this one 3 stars because it was fun, it was really interesting, but I also didn't feel like the characters were super explored. We're just kind of thrust into their lives, but like they were not distinct at all in my opinion. Maybe it was because I read it fast or something. I just felt like I didn't know who was who half the time. They don't really have distinct personalities and we don't really get to meet a lot of them. So the fourth prompt roll came with a prompt that I was very excited about, and then once I started logistically thinking about it, I realised it was really bad, and that was YA fantasy. Now, I know what you're thinking, isn't that like your whole bookshelf? And you're right, it is my whole bookshelf. But my whole bookshelf also has very few books that are less than 400 pages long. So for 12 hours left on the readathon, I was like, I can't pick up a new fantasy series. I don't want to do that. So I decided to read The Indigo Spell by Richelle Mead, the third book in the Bloodlines series. As I said, the first book really set the tone. This is definitely my favourite book in the series. I love this one so much. I was reading this and with a massive smile on my face, and I actually read most of this at the park, so there was people just looking at me really weird, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just enjoying myself. So this one I gave 4 stars again because I love this one. The plot is really good. There's 2 main plot lines. It feels like there's more going on in the book, and there is also massive character development, there's romance development, and the ending, I'm not going to spoil it even though probably everyone has read Bloodlines, but just in case you haven't, the ending of this book is so infuriating. Everything is just going perfectly and it's just all worked out, and we're finally like, oh my god, these people are gonna have some peace for once in their lives, and then boom, everything goes wrong. So I really liked that book and it was a really quick read. So I actually ended up also doing the second prompt for the prompt roll. Even though I was planning to read one for each roll, that didn't really happen. I ended up picking up a contemporary book which I listened to as an audiobook, and that was Clap When You Land by Acevedo. I can't even begin to describe how much I like this book. I listened to the audiobook, which was amazing. I haven't read the physical copy, so I can't tell you if that's good, but the audiobook is so hard-hitting. I started listening to it when I was walking from the park back home, and I literally had to stop when the first chapter started because I had to just stop and listen to it without doing anything. I just had to like focus on it because it was so incredible and chilling, and I just knew from that first chapter that I was going to enjoy this. It was quite a short listen, it was 5 hours, so I managed to finish it before 12 AM, which was really good. I think it's a heavy book. It deals with a lot of grief and a lot of hard family topics. I just thought this was a really interesting book that explored a lot of like hard-hitting topics, but it ends on such a hopeful note, and it really is an uplifting read by the end of it. Something I want to mention is there is a queer character in this book, and what I really like is that so Yahira, who has a girlfriend, there's never this big reveal, or like, you know, she talks about how she didn't care about coming out, and I just think we need a lot more of that in fiction, because a lot of the times when there's queer characters, the plot of the book is about them being queer and about their like journey in queerness, and while that is absolutely important for people to read, I think there is a big lack of just queer characters having different plot lines. Just being queer is like being athletic, it's just a character trait. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was very well written, and I loved the audiobook. If you have the option to listen to it, I would definitely recommend. So I read 6.5 books, if we count the Silence of Bones as the half, because I got to 50% of the audiobook. And in total, I read 2,017 pages in 48 hours. I really did not think this was going to happen. I was really impressed with myself because I wasn't even planning to do this readathon to begin with, because I don't own many books I haven't read. As you saw, 3 of the 6 books that I read were rereads. Overall, I did 7 out of 8 prompts, so that was a lot of fun. Please let me know if you took part in the readathon and how you did. Leave a comment and I'll see how everyone did. I also really loved the community aspect of it. There was loads of tweets. Becca was retweeting loads of people's updates, and I managed to make a lot of new friends. I definitely think this was a success, and I wasn't planning on doing this readathon, as I mentioned, so I'm quite happy it required no planning before. It was kind of like, you know, you hit the ground running and you just come up with it as you go. And yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. Check the description for any links to the book that I mentioned and also links to my social media. Please do subscribe if you would like to. I'm going to be picking up booktube again for like the 10th time, but now that I'm in uni I'm hoping that I will be able to do it a lot easier than when I was in school. I think my next video is going to be some sort of introduction. I'm thinking of doing a newbie tag and a reading habits tag combined because I think that's going to be super cool, and those are some fun tags to do. So yeah, stay tuned and you'll see what comes next. Thank you everyone, see you next time.